Welcome to HFY Sci-Fi Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Nornavio, within Clara's inviting quarters. "You are far too pleased with yourself, Clara," Cynthia declared, a wry smile playing on her lips as she presented her friend a glistening glass of guava juice. The liquid, a vibrant, almost audacious pink, swirled with tiny, playful seeds. A sight that instantly piqued Cynthia's curiosity. A sudden, deep thirst ignited in her own throat, her taste buds already tingling. She knew her palate could never truly rival her princess's boundless love for sweetness and other less conventional, yet undeniably rich, culinary delights. Still, she too had grown to appreciate such sugary notes, perhaps an unexpected consequence of their shared, interwoven lives. Seating herself beside Clara, Cynthia poured her own glass, then swiftly lifted it, downing half its contents in a single, unhesitating gulp. The unfamiliar, luscious sweetness of the guava cascaded over her tongue, a brief, intoxicating sensation before the parched feeling finally receded. She felt a silent, amused gratitude for her friend's eccentric cravings and her tireless efforts to secure such exotic provisions. Clara, utterly unbothered by the quiet appraisal, picked up her glass and drank with almost identical enthusiasm, exhaling a deeply satisfied sigh as her tongue leisurely traced her lips. "Is it truly that obvious?" Clara queried, a mischievous glint in her eyes, before taking a more measured, yet no less eager, sip from her glass. Cynthia was about to formulate a reply when, from across the table, a distinct, chirpy laugh claimed her attention, drawing her gaze instantly to Jincho. "Obvious? Yes, very. You are a weird one, Pretty Eyes." "Good way," Jincho proclaimed, his beak opening wide as he threw his head back slightly, pouring the juice directly into himself. All six of Cynthia's eyes widened in stunned amusement as he continued to swallow loudly, the glass emptying with astonishing speed. Not content with mere consumption, he then angled the glass to the side of his beak, meticulously licking every last remaining drop. Cynthia narrowed her eyes, a mixture of exasperation and grudging respect flickering within their depths. "There's more, should you desire another serving, you insufferable creature," she stated, her hand already reaching for the handle of the shimmering jar. "Many thanks," Jincho chirped instantly. "More, please." He presented his empty glass. As Cynthia, with a resigned sigh, refilled it, Jincho pressed on. "Insolent creature. Terrible. Will not accept that. Be creative, imaginative. Try again." Cynthia's glare intensified, but she remained silent, simply refilling the glass once more after he had gulped down his second serving. Seemingly sated for the moment, she waited until he placed the glass firmly on the table, then turned to her amused, smiling blonde friend. "Must you entertain his antics?" she murmured, a weary fondness in her tone. Slowly, Clara reached for Cynthia's shoulder, her gaze locking deep with her friend's soul before she spoke. "Yes, Julius, to preserve my sanity," Cynthia complained, a wry twist to her lips as she drained the last of her juice. The blonde princess chuckled softly, withdrawing her hand, and then poured herself another glass, exhaling a soft, contented breath through her nose. "Hungry Eyes wishes to devour me," the auntie engineer declared with a profoundly mirthful tone in his voice. "Keep dreaming. Not a good meal." Clara, expertly ignoring her friend's sudden wave of annoyance, deftly refocused on Jincho and the vital information she needed from him. "As much as I genuinely enjoy testing my bodyguard's immense patience, tell me, Jincho, are these refreshments truly to your liking?" "Very," came his immediate reply. "Oleanti like fruits. I prefer meats and seeds, but fruit... It's delightful, truly sweet, remarkably rich, and utterly delicious. You simply can't go wrong," he declared, reaching for roasted seeds, nuts, and a wriggling worm from several plates before him. He devoured them with fervent relish, washing it all down with a generous draught of his juice. "So, Pretty Eyes," he began, "why would you imply I'm dissatisfied with Roaring Thunder's repair? On the contrary, my dear Jincho, I am far more than merely pleased with your efforts. I am so profoundly impressed, in fact, that I struggle to conceive of a suitable reward that could adequately express my gratitude," Clara confessed, her face beaming with a joyous smile as she fondly remembered the 2 hours she'd dedicated to meticulously examining every single inch of Maximilian's fully restored fighter. So scant were the remains that she had genuinely believed only a complete reconstruction would suffice. Yet her esteemed Ikanti had not only masterfully resurrected Maximilian's fighter, performing the feat with a fluidity the technician chief openly deemed disgustingly effortless, using the mere fragments left, but he had also meticulously guaranteed that the original components were carefully maintained as distinct, individual relics. It was destined to forever be a revered showpiece, incapable of soaring or engaging in battle again, yet impeccably preserved through his astonishing capabilities, a feat that was, quite frankly, nothing short of breathtaking. Most significantly, transcending all other considerations, it was unequivocally hers to possess and cherish. Oh, how desperately she yearned to settle into its cockpit just for a fleeting moment and surrender to the fantasy of flight. "Bah, your gratitude is entirely superfluous," he dismissively waved. "You simply permitted me to pursue my passion, to do what I excel at. There's no requirement for additional recompense. What I've already received is ample. I genuinely relish the process of working on and restoring it. It's truly over-designed, yet undeniably potent. Singular. I've unearthed countless secrets, sparking numerous concepts for future consideration, many of which I've already begun to apply. The first prototypes will be prepared by tomorrow," Gingcho announced, practically vibrating with excited energy. "Worm will pilot it." "Yes," Clara echoed, attempting her most convincing imitation of Gingcho's tone. "Indeed, any pilot could do, but I can only truly rely on him to thoroughly test my latest creation. There's merely a 5% chance of detonation in simulations. I require a real-world trial for a full spectrum of data," the engineer affirmed with eager conviction. "He will furnish you with every piece of data you desire, and then some. I am utterly certain that it shall be so," Clara concurred. Then her countenance abruptly transformed, settling into her renowned, diplomatically frigid mask. Gingcho instantly perceived the palpable shift in the room's energy, his 6 eyes fixated on her with keen curiosity. "Gingcho," she began, her voice now imbued with a measured gravity, "your invaluable contributions extend far beyond me. They have benefited the entire Principality since your arrival aboard the Noravio. Now, I find myself compelled to ask even more of you, for truly, I have no other soul to whom I can turn in this desperate quest for understanding. Will you extend your aid to a nation that already stands deeply indebted to you, yet paradoxically struggles to fully acknowledge your extraordinary genius and profound impact? Will you consent to speak with absolute candor, sharing all that lies within your vast knowledge?" A collective blink rippled through Jincho's 6 eyes. "Ah," he murmured, "this indeed appears to be a matter of considerable gravity. Very well, Pretty Eyes. Pose your inquiry, and I shall respond to the utmost extent of my capabilities. While your nation may not be the optimal environment for my kind, it undeniably surpasses the hierarchy by a vast margin. We are, after all, companions, are we not? If I possess the means to assist you, then assist I shall." Clara then inclined her head subtly toward Cynthia, her silent instruction acknowledged. The azure gaze of her bodyguard flickered briefly, almost imperceptibly, before the holographic screen shimmered into vibrant existence. "Are we discussing state secrets, then?" Gingcho inquired. but Clara merely offered a decisive shake of her head. Upon the screen, the Yakanti, Jincho, witnessed a deliberately distorted recording of Frederick Anderson's execution. As it concluded, a second, chillingly authentic feed began, revealing the nobleman's brain matter violently erupting from his nostrils, eyes, and ears. A gruesome, viscous, almost organic sludge. The single, stark commonality between these two horrific displays was the traitor's ultimate, irreversible demise. Suspects. Jincho's voice was a low hum of inquiry. Everyone and absolutely no one, Clara exhaled, a profound weariness in her voice. My brother Darling initiated countless investigations, yet every path leads to a dead end. We are certain Frederick was eliminated by other clandestine elements of the traitor network, seeking to silence him after his bungled assassination attempt. But the method, the excruciating how, remains tantalizingly beyond our grasp, like a master illusionist's sleight of hand designed to divert our gaze while the fatal blades strike unseen. Is there additional data I might scrutinize? He queried. Cynthia fluidly rotated her left forearm, and with a soft whir, a compact data chit ejected. She deftly snagged it mid-air between her fingers, extending it towards Jincho. He accepted it without a moment's pause, then pressed it to the right side of his cranium, precisely an inch above and behind his eye. A barely perceptible slit materialized as a small portion of his dermal layer retracted. Both the princess and her bodyguard were frozen, wide-eyed, the former particularly startled by the bizarre sight. "You're a cyborg?" Cynthia managed, her voice a whisper, sparing her friend further discomfiture. "Not precisely. These enhancements are entirely my own design," Jincho clarified, a faint, almost amused pat to his scalp. He then connected the chit to the aperture. His gaze sharpened, a flicker of intense processing in his eyes for a full second before he detached the chip and returned it to Cynthia. "I've encountered this precise method before. Twice, in fact, within archived records. What you just witnessed is a highly specialized form of execution, strictly reserved for traitors operating within the Arabian Commonwealth's topmost echelons." "Preposterous," Cynthia interjected, a deep frown creasing her brow. "There are absolutely no documented instances of them employing such a grotesque technique. Over centuries, thousands of Arabian agents, pirates, infiltrators, and operatives have been apprehended or discovered deceased. Not a single one bore these identical marks." "When precisely did your principality last launch a direct, proactive offensive against the Arabian Commonwealth?" Jincho inquired, his head tilting subtly as the uncanny cranial aperture sealed itself, vanishing as if it had never existed. "Your intelligence regarding them is woefully obsolete and superficial at the micro level. Certainly you maintain agents and sponsor privateers in their vicinity, but they operate exclusively on the periphery of Arabian territory, light years away from their true leadership, or, more accurately, their ruling nobility." Cynthia's gaze dropped, a deep, frustrated growl rumbling low in her throat. "You are correct, Jincho," she conceded, her voice strained. "Our principality has indeed consistently chosen a passive stance in response to the encroaching threats surrounding us." "Precisely," Jincho affirmed. "This fundamental inaction is precisely why you remain ignorant of the Commonwealth's favored method for dispatching its most senior failures and betrayers. It's a brutal demonstration, a chilling example, a dire warning, and a binding promise, all delivered on a single, agonizingly cruel platter. But this much I can now state with absolute certainty. Frederick Anderson was assassinated using a technique directly attributable to the Arabians. And disturbingly, whoever executed it possesses a profound techno. This expert possesses unknown, terrifying means, a likely master of misdirection, deceit, manipulation, infiltration, and countless other skills I can't even fathom, the Akanti stated, his tone disturbingly grave. Gingcho, Clara began, leaning forward, her intense purple eyes somehow piercing all six of his. I need you to be absolutely, unequivocally certain when you answer. Is it truly possible that the traitors who thrust House Anderson into my uncle's unwitting embrace are, in fact, Arabians? Jincho slowly parted his beak, a thin tongue emerging as he tilted his head with deliberate slowness for nearly a minute. He snapped his beak shut, then gave a decisive nod. Considering their method of execution, I wouldn't dismiss the high probability of one or more Arabian agents operating within the traitors' ranks, he stated. Yet I gravely doubt your uncle actively employs them. I believe he is utterly unaware of Arabian agents pulling strings, weeding plants, or picking fruits within his own circle. Surely he grasps the immense danger they pose. Why claim victory only to grant Arabians free rein? No, absolutely not. The Commonwealth is rarely overt, but this is not their modus operandi. He paused, his gaze boring deeply into Clara's captivating eyes. Still so pretty. I cannot confirm that the killer of traitor Anderson was Arabian, he continued, nor can I confirm or deny if a group or a single operative is involved. What I can state, without fear of error, is that they are profoundly familiar with Arabian methods. My guess, a singular agent with a very particular skill set. Why do all this without the Arabians themselves making a move? Unsure. Perhaps this agent acts not only alone, but is entirely divorced from the Commonwealth. A traitor among traitors. Cynthia scoffed, not at the idea, but at the notion that Duke Cornelius's loyalists could be so utterly blind as to miss such a snake among them. Are we not equally to blame, Cynthia? We failed just as profoundly as they did, Clara remarked, her voice laden with weary acceptance of her friend's frustration. Speculation is truly all I can offer with my limited information. He met her gaze. Those beautiful eyes. What dark objectives motivate such a creature? Jincho pondered, a slight tremor in his voice. I simply cannot fathom it. Tell your brother this, Clara. Warn him to be intensely wary. For if this agent remains free, Arabian or not, then unimaginable havoc will inevitably fall upon him. How? When? I do not know. Only that it will come to him. His warning resonated, deep and profoundly sincere, chilling Clara to her core. For a fleeting moment, color drained from her face, but her resolve instantly returned. Thank you, Gingcho. Truly, sincerely, thank you. Her eyes burned with fierce determination. I would not take kindly to the loss of my brother, dearest. This isn't definitive proof, no, but it is far more than we had. I will ensure you are richly rewarded for your crucial aid. Before she could utter another word, Jincho stood, circled the table with an unexpected swiftness, and then, without the slightest hesitation or crumb of shame, reached with Gincho enveloped her, his arms wrapping tightly around her seated form. The blue-haired warrior, Cynthia, watched the spectacle with an unblinking gaze, her hand instinctively tightening on her blade's hilt, while Princess Clara blinked, utterly bewildered. The peculiar silence stretched for a few long seconds before Gincho released his hold, offering Clara 2 quick, gentle pats on her head before stepping back. What was that? Clara stammered, a mix of confusion, bewilderment, and utter surprise clouding her voice. An emotional support embrace, Gincho announced, his voice carrying its usual buoyant, light-hearted cheer. It's different for Yakanti and humans. I'm no expert, and usually it's not worth much attention. But this time, your pretty eyes and hungry eyes are friends. Did it help? He then pivoted to Cynthia, offering, Want an emotional support embrace? I can give one. Just promise no broken bones." Suddenly, Clara erupted into peals of laughter. Beside her, Cynthia's grip on her sword loosened, her gaze fixed on Gincho as if he were an particularly egregious, unsightly stain marring a precious silk curtain. Eventually, a tiny, reluctant smile touched Cynthia's lips, even as Clara struggled valiantly to regain her composure. Interpreting the faint smile as acceptance, the blue-haired warrior grudgingly permitted the Yakanti to engulf her in an equally awkward embrace, also concluding with 2 familiar pats on her head. "No repayment needed," Gincho affirmed. "Just let me work. That's all I ask for. I am happiest when I do." With composure restored, Clara smiled, extending a closed fist toward Gincho. The Yakanti's vestigial wings fluttered with uncontained joy before he bumped fists with her, a universally recognized Yakanti sign of deep, mutual friendship, initiated as an affirmation of a strong bond. "Do you require more of my genius? More projects to work on?" Gincho eagerly inquired. "Not at this moment, Gincho. You may return to your work," the princess declared with an air of finality. Then she watched as the rambunctious ball of unpredictable surprises and boundless energy swiftly drained the last of his juice, meticulously stowed the remaining snacks, including the distinctly wriggling worms, into his various pockets, and then vanished, the door opening for him without a verbal command. Clara's smile softened and widened as she drew closer to Cynthia, leaning into her slightly, seeking comfort. Then, a long, weary sigh escaped her lips. "I had truly hoped he knew nothing," Clara murmured, her voice laced with a weary resignation, leaving us blissfully blinded to what truly lurks beneath these murky waters. "What is worse, Cynthia?" she pondered, a profound question hanging in the air. "To wish for ignorance, or to confront the terrifying realization of your deepest fears made manifest, so you can at least act to defend yourself from the horror?" "Willful ignorance is always the greater evil, Clara," Cynthia replied, her tone sincere and unyielding. A few moments later, a hollow, dark chuckle escaped Cynthia's throat. "Being a princess never gets easier, does it? The totem must remain strong, yet flexible enough to allow change to flow through it. A rigid totem can only shatter and fall," the blonde woman replied, shaking her head slowly. "I miss my father," Clara whispered, her voice thick with sorrow. "And my brother, dearest, he wishes to carry on his dreams, but through blood and strife, until they are realized." Her hands clenched into tight fists. "Damn him, Cynthia! Damn Uncle Cornelius! Why?" she seethed, her voice strained. "Every speech, every lesson, every deed, they are all now empty, utterly devoid of meaning. You have to stop thin. My heart aches for you, Clara, knowing the pain he inflicts. I feel that ache too, but he betrayed us. His loyalists nearly ended us all. He would not hesitate to extinguish Redford, us, or even the prince, should the opportunity arise. The dark path he chose, that act of treachery, is beyond your reach, Clara. You must not shoulder this crushing weight." Cynthia, her blue eyes brimming with a soft, tender plea, murmured. Clara, seeking solace, let her head fall onto Cynthia's shoulder, a familiar comfort desperately craved. "I know, Cynthia, I know." Clara's voice was a whisper. "But this gnawing ache, it's relentless. I can only promise to try. Perhaps it will be easier to focus on the myriad of other crises awaiting us. Tamarind and Andrew Ken, surely, will retaliate for the public humiliation they endured. Tamarind, that viper, remains the most perilous, yet paradoxically, both predictable and infuriatingly difficult to thwart. We desperately need more staunch allies, more forces ready to answer our call. And the mystery of the black ships, those silent harbingers of doom, still haunts us. My own hubris. I was so certain of success that I utterly misjudged Felicity's concealed machinations, allowing the traitors to disseminate the raw, damning footage of our valiant but flawed endeavor. At least they couldn't get their hands on Wyatt's truly incendiary remarks. And now, it seems the very viper we thought decapitated has spawned another venomous head, poised to strike at my dearest brother. A profound, despondent sigh escaped her. "I despise this," she whispered, with a searing, burning passion that threatens to tear through my very soul. And there's so agonizingly little I can do. There you are again, Clara. You cannot grasp every thread of fate, control every outcome. You are neither omniscient nor omnipotent, and for that, you should be truly grateful, Cynthia soothed, leaning her head gently against her friend's. A soft, weary hum was Clara's only reply. Long, quiet moments stretched between them, a comfortable stillness, until Cynthia finally broke the peace, sensing Clara's breathing had eased, returning to a steady rhythm. "You know, Clara, you can utter his name. Here, just between us, no one else will hear, and no harm will befall you for it." "I know," Clara answered, a faint, sad smile gracing her lips. "But I cannot. He is the prince. He cast aside his own name. It would feel improper, even here, in the deepest privacy, to speak it." Cynthia's smile mirrored hers, a gentle knowing. "Oh? No witty retort or playful coaxing to make me finally say his name?" "Perhaps another time," the princess countered, a hint of mischief returning. "Now stay put. Your armor is a truly awful pillow, yet I find I like it." The blue-haired woman chuckled softly, offering no reply, content to simply let her friend find her much-needed peace. The tranquil hum of the Eternal Garden's retrofitted communication lounge offered little solace. "What more can I possibly achieve to finally earn your approval? Tuzia." Salazar Reed's voice held a desperate edge as he fixated on his wife's impassive face, though her eyes blazed with undisguised disdain. "I garnered commendations for my role in the recent battle. The stain I brought upon our esteemed house won't simply vanish, but surely this is a beginning, a feat few others can claim." Tuzia Reed's lips thinned into a severe line, her cold gray cybernetic eyes narrowing with utter contempt. "You inflate your own worth far too readily, Salazar. Every single participant received commendations and distinctions, even the lowliest floor-crawling commoners." A sharp, displeased click echoed from her throat, cutting him short. Her tongue flicked, a cruel prelude. "No medal, no distinction of merit. You call this a victory?" Salazar's eyes narrowed, battling his volatile temper, seeing past mistakes clearly an uphill climb he knew he could conquer. "A first step," he countered. "My shame not easily fixed or forgiven, but Vassort discerns effort. He commanded this call, did he not?" He watched with grim satisfaction as her stunning features contorted, forcing a reluctant nod. "Regardless, Salazar, you're still light years from Vassort or Vashikati's forgiveness. Our sons still shun your name, yet their profound shame has diminished." Tuzia sighed, shaking her head. "Julius himself, by the first prince's will, sought me out. My tireless efforts have quelled the rumor mill, those poisonous whispers. Only the lowest rabble, incompetent idiots, still speak of your blunder, and even their voices are dying. What would you ever achieve without me, I wonder? Grovel, cower, or merely shout at the problem, convinced sheer volume could somehow make it vanish?" Salazar straightened, a quiet defiance. "I'm glad my wife is a caring, capable woman." Tuzia was momentarily stunned, though her surprise vanished swiftly. "Flattery was never your forte. Still, seeing you was hardly my main concern. Vort's command merely provided pretext. Forget Wyatt Staples. Seek no further conflict with him." Salazar sighed tiredly. Did I not explicitly state I wouldn't entertain any plot against Baron Staples's life? The duel concluded, his victory undeniable, our long-standing feud settled. His gaze intensified. But why now, Tuzia? I know how vindictive you are, for you to recoil from your prior declarations. He let the unspoken implication hang heavy. Tuzia's left eye twitched. Then she briefly closed them, leaning back. What an imbecile do you take me for? A blind fool? She scoffed. I've seen what that man is capable of. Everyone has. I won't allow a greater humiliation to befall House Reed. A mocking smirk played on her lips. Now I truly comprehend how he utterly defeated you. Salazar hummed deeply, wishing to retort, but choosing silence, his frown eliciting a sharp laugh from the brown-haired woman. My, where is that renowned fiery bravado, dear husband? Tuzia questioned, each word a barb, twisting salt in the wound. Has he truly reduced you to this pathetic shell of the honorable, dignified man I married? Was that man merely an illusion? And now I see you for the pathetic shell you truly are. Were you always trying to cloak yourself in a shell of false bravado? Salazar's reply was silence, his gaze locked with his wife's until she scoffed. Ending the call with a dismissive click, he rose, adjusting his uniform, and left the comms room. To his right stood a 10-year-old in a simple auxiliary uniform. His severe burns had vanished, his face healed, his damaged eye restored. Faint scars on his neck and face would soon fade with treatment. Crucially, his dark hair was already beginning to regrow. Unal, come, Salazar commanded, and the boy eagerly fell into step beside him. They emerged from the bustling lounge into a vast hallway, unmistakably alien in its construction. Stepping onto the filth-laden deck of a captured Drazen vessel, even one liberated from Xenos filth, felt sickening. Finally, they reached an elevator, impatient to return to the Naravio and assess his unit's progress. The doors parted, revealing a humble worker at the controls and 2 uniformed officers within. His eyes widened briefly before he saluted. Wyatt and G emerged, Wyatt holding a data slate. Salazar, Wyatt greeted, returning the salute. G mirrored his actions, and their hands lowered. He glanced at Unal, raising an eyebrow. So you've chosen to remain, Unal? Unal nodded vigorously. I don't wish to leave, Shipmother. I earned my place. G forced a smile at the former pirate, reminding himself of the boy's transformation. Won't you miss your friends? Unal shook his head. Many others stay with Shipmother. They want to remain, to contribute. He turned to Salazar with a bright smile. Sergeant is strong. I wish to grow as strong as him and make Shipmother proud. Wyatt turned his attention to Salazar, intrigued by the child's declaration. Unal shows great promise, Lieutenant Commodore. He's young, but eager to learn. Under the program established by First Lieutenant Galt Tiomi, he and the older youths will be under my guidance and training. They will be well looked after, auxilia forces, Salazar explained. As you were, Sergeant. G dismissed him. Salazar offered a salute, Unal fumbling his attempt. Then they departed. As the elevator doors closed, G turned to Wyatt. Do you truly believe it wise to leave those children with you, Wyatt, in your desolate place? Wyatt nodded. Did you not yourself remark that they were unlikely to revert to their piratical ways after experiencing a life superior to their already meager existence? I did, G conceded, a heavy sigh escaping him. Forgive me, sir. I spoke rashly. Wyatt placed a hand on G's shoulder, unconcerned by the stares of passing nobles. If I were in your position, G, I would share your anxieties. I find it surprising that Salazar has taken Angle under his wing. He doesn't strike me as a man who... He's profoundly fond of children, G confessed, his voice tinged with a grudging respect. I still don't entirely comprehend the rationale behind that specific request, yet he's consistently proven exceptionally competent in his role as their overseer. Initially, I dismissed him as a mere socialite officer, but now I'm utterly convinced he truly earned his previous rank, or at the very least, he single-handedly performed the vast majority of the arduous work to attain it. Wyatt smoothly retrieved his hand, his attention shifting back to his datapad as their footsteps resumed their rhythmic, echoing pace. "Where was I?" he mused aloud. "Ah, yes. I've noticed every single one of my requests and delivery drops for Newtown is now being dispatched with an unmistakable priority mark," he explained, extending the glowing device for G's inspection. The red-haired man's discerning gaze swept over the display for several telling seconds before a low, satisfied "ah" rumbled deep within his chest. "It appears Sabrasa Kaspers, the esteemed head officer of the logistical division, has been extending you every conceivable assistance. She has, in fact, consistently vocalized her profound approval and immense admiration for your actions, Wyatt. In that case, I absolutely must express my heartfelt gratitude to her personally. She's genuinely lightened the formidable workload for Elizabeth Anno and Rachel," Wyatt admitted, a rare, genuine smile softening his features. "The sheer, unwavering dedication you've poured into developing your provisional barony is, quite frankly, exceptional, Wyatt. Few, even in the most opportune times, would bother to invest half as much effort." G let out a soft, knowing chuckle. Not that House Ferentis seems at all inclined to apply that provisional descriptor anytime soon, or indeed ever. Wyatt's brow furrowed slightly in puzzled confusion. Lord Istanel is immeasurably pleased with all the Drazen subjects now at his disposal, although victims might be a far more accurate and poignant descriptor. That alone holds immense significance. But with the remarkable return of Hastrung and all its invaluable contents, House Ferentis will spare absolutely no effort to maintain such an extraordinarily amicable relationship. "Congratulations are most certainly in order, my Lord Baron," G pronounced, executing a perfectly practiced, deferential bow of his head. Wyatt visibly grimaced, his discomfort palpable. "Please, G, don't. I can barely stop Declan from addressing me as Lord or Baron half the damn time, and I still haven't figured out what to do with him. He can't possibly stay guarding our quarters indefinitely, can he?" G's lips curved into a subtle, knowing smirk as he deliberately crossed his arms. "Perhaps you should consult Commander Redford for guidance in that particular regard, Wyatt. He is, after all, of high nobility and the distinguished head of House Cullen." "Perhaps you're right," the pilot conceded, a flicker of reluctant understanding in his eyes. A chilling silence had settled within the solemn grandeur of Duke Cornelius's private quarters. "Nothing," Cornelius declared, his voice a flat, deadened echo as he sat rigidly behind his imposing desk, his expression an inscrutable mask of frustration and despair. His daughter, Veronica, stood perfectly still beside him, a silent, statuesque sentinel, her face a frigid tableau, stoic, utterly cold, entirely devoid of warmth or human caring. "No trace, no clue, no path," he murmured, the words a bitter taste on his tongue. "My lord, Mayap's grandmother may have aided Gabriel," Veronica proposed, her voice cutting through the quiet like a shard of ice, devoid of emotion. Cornelius didn't even deign to entertain the faintest, most fleeting ghost of such a possibility. "No, Dina would never betray me by assisting your brother in hiding or escaping. Among all my staunchest supporters and most trusted allies, she was the very first to pledge herself to me wholeheartedly. She undeniably loves her grandchildren, yes, but her unwavering loyalty and unyielding duty have always taken precedence. Always." He inhaled deeply, a long, weary breath, then pinched the bridge of his nose, desperately trying to suppress the agonizing, nascent throb of a headache that threatened to consume him. How did he do it? How was my son able to slip past Cameron's relentless grasp? Cornelius demanded of the empty air for the 20th agonizing time, his torment palpable. As before, no answer presented itself. The hoverbike, his discarded garments, lay abandoned, a solitary clue. But of Gabriel himself, there was no other sign. Dinah, with her uncanny intuition, had swiftly charted his initial trajectory, and from there, her actions had unfolded with precise logic. Cornelius had been unshakably convinced of Gabriel's predictable blunders, that he would flaunt his authority over ordinary citizens, make a desperate attempt to board a vessel, or, bereft of any other recourse and cornered, publicly declare his allegiance to the prince, renouncing his own father. Finding him, Cornelius believed, would be little more than a formality. Yet Gabriel had defied all expectations. He had somehow managed to evade every patrol, circumvent intricate security systems, and vanish from calm. How? 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 The raw, guttural cries tore from Cornelius's throat as his fist, fueled by a storm of incredulity, smashed down upon his desk, the ancient wood groaning and splitting beneath the impact. He barely registered the flicker of concern in his daughter's eyes, consumed by the burning imperative to unravel this impossible enigma. How indeed could his son, so predictable in his short temper, so utterly devoid of creative ingenuity, have possibly vanished from the very planet? The chilling thought of Gabriel's demise was quickly dismissed, as was the even more infuriating notion that he might be cowering in some forgotten refuge, simply to defy his father. Gabriel possessed a keen capacity for malice, yes, but his vengefulness was always precise, a meticulously calculated instrument. How then could the wildest, most improbable scenario Cornelius had ever entertained, the notion of genuine escape, have materialized as the undeniable truth? He had spectacularly, utterly failed to contain his own blood. Now he is adrift, Cornelius murmured, his voice hollow, alone and vulnerable. The furious tempest within him had abruptly subsided, leaving only the bitter currents of guilt and gnawing regret. "Father, let me go," Veronica implored, dropping to one knee before him, her voice brimming with fervent determination. "I swear I will track Gabriel down and drag him back to you, begging for forgiveness on his hands and knees." "Be at ease, my daughter," Cornelius responded, a dismissive wave of his hand silencing her fervent plea. "Your brother will be located." As she rose, he continued, his tone firm. "I require you here, Veronica, always at my side. I will command that every jump point entering Arnav territory be subjected to rigorous monitoring, and every vessel boarded for exhaustive inspection. His movements, after all," he mused, a flicker of his old certainty returning, "are still quite foreseeable." He then paused, a low, thoughtful hum vibrating in his chest. Peterson's unsettling words echoed with disquieting clarity within his mind. Could Gabriel genuinely be less helpless than Cornelius had always perceived? Had he truly misjudged his own son, failing to grasp the depths of his capabilities? His gaze sharpened, eyes narrowing into slits as a torrent of unsettling possibilities cascaded through his thoughts. "And Duvani," he added, his voice gaining a new edge. "The identical directive will be enforced at every jump point traversing into Duvani space." "Understood, my Lord Father," Veronica responded, a swift, almost predatory smile touching her lips. "My life's sole purpose is your service. Command me, and I shall obey without question." Cornelius studied his daughter for an extended, quiet stretch of time, a silent appraisal, before finally rising from his seat. Veronica remained motionless, her watchful eyes following him as he strode purposefully towards a polished counter laden with his preferred libations. He selected a formidable crystal goblet, and filled it generously with the most potent vintage from his private stores. The nearly obsidian liquid, appropriately dubbed Black Dragon, scorched his tongue and throat in a potent embrace, delivering both profound satisfaction and sharp, punitive pain in equal measure. A slow exhale released a plume of dark, coiling smoke that writhed past his lips for a fleeting moment before dissipating into the air. He poured another measure, then settled into a plush, nearby couch. Minutes bled into an oppressive silence, broken only by the occasional measured sip of the Black Dragon, a futile attempt to quiet the tumultuous cacophony of 100 pressing concerns vying for his attention. When he was precisely halfway through his cup, with a heavy sigh, he withdrew a slightly wrinkled letter from within his suit, though every word was etched into his memory. A desperate compulsion forced his eyes to scan the familiar creases once more. Dear Uncle Cornelius Draymore, may this find you in sound health and spirit. Captain Sir Ortega delivers this message. I implore you that if even a whisper of the man I once revered still resides within you, you allow him to retire in peace and with the honor he deserves, not in disgrace or branded as a traitor or coward. Yet, Uncle, I desperately wish I knew what truly compelled you to launch this coup against your own nephew. Can your ambition truly stomach the thought of my death, or that of your own nieces and nephews? How many Redfords, how many Synths must perish for this elusive goal you pursue? What dark current propels you to such extremes? The Council of Nobles stands shackled, and so many of my siblings, your own flesh and blood, lie ensnared within your grasp. Was I always just an obstacle in your grand design? The question haunts me. Uncle, I implore you, end this folly. I will fall to my knees before my brother, your nephew, the prince, begging him to forgive and forget, to spare your very life if it means an end to this. I beg you, stop. But if you refuse, then I say this with a heavy heart. I will never cease, never rest, until you yield, or until your cold, lifeless form lies broken upon the floor, your blood staining the princely carpet. For I swear to you, while breath remains in my body, victory will forever evade you. It will be but a phantom, a whisper on the wind, a promise eternally beyond your reach, a goal unattainable. If your demise is the only path to prevent greater suffering, then with a heart burdened by grief, I shall assist in that outcome for the greater good of our principality. Do not dismiss my threats as hollow, Uncle. You have seen him, the man who shielded my life, who saved countless others. He is the White Paladin, the Wraith, the Wolfhound, a force I cannot fully command. Spare your soldiers the grim fate that awaits those who stand in his way. And finally, convey my sincerest regards to Gabriel. I pray you treat him with kindness, for I doubt he stands by your side, as Veronica surely does. With profound regret, and yet with enduring love, Clara Astor, second princess of the Etorian Principality. P.S. I believe you'll find delight in a baked confection called Veshcom. A small data chit with its recipe is enclosed. Savor it. It pairs exquisitely with tea and sweet fruit juices. Cornelius carefully refolded the letter, tucking it away as a sorrowful smile touched his lips. If only Joseph had accepted my plea to adopt you, Clara, he murmured, a whisper of a sound swallowed by the quiet. He reached for his neglected cup, but the heavy doors to his quarters swung open. A lone servant entered, bearing a tray. Upon it lay a single blue ribbon, each end marked by a stark white dot. His drink, forgotten entirely, he rose from his chair.